We had the worst inflation in history and the history of our country. I mean, we had months where it was 9 and 10%. And now we have a report just came out. It was just released. Thank you for bringing it up. But the report was incredible. Inflation is way down. That means prices are coming way down, and we're doing a great job. Remember that, because nobody else could do it. Prices are way down. Prices are coming way down, and we're going to bring them much lower.
The president says the tide is turning. Prices are finally moving in the right direction, but he says the job isn't done yet, promising Americans even lower prices ahead. Welcome to the Big Money Show, everyone. I'm Jackie DeAngelis, along with my co-hosts Taylor Riggs, Lydia Hu, and Brian Bremberg. With us for the hour, Rose Cliff founder and managing partner Mike Murphy. Great to see you. The president is pointing to another sign that inflation is easing after yesterday's cooler than expected CPI report. Today's wholesale inflation report showed producer prices fell more than expected in June, led by a sharp drop in gasoline prices. Meanwhile, new Fed Chairman Kevin Warsh is on Capitol Hill for his second day of testimony, and he says the Federal Reserve is determined to get to that 2% goal. So, Taylor, I'll come to you first on the numbers, on the wholesale inflation numbers mirroring what we saw yesterday with CPI and this idea that 2% is the target. The core number is not far away from that, which is good news. And we know a lot of this hinges on oil prices, which are elevated again because of the recent sort of, kicking up the dust in the Middle East and in that conflict. So your thoughts on how quickly we could get to a 2% target? Given the situation the way it is?
So I'm glad that you talked about oil prices, because it came for data for you just on this, because I was thinking, okay, oil prices came down in June. That's why we saw the big decline in PPI and CPI on the headline numbers. I was like, oh no, but what about July? Good news for you there. The average Brent price in June was 85.
Okay.
The average so far in July is 78 to 81. It's still lower, the average in July, than it was in June. WTI, average in June, 82. Average WTI so far in July, 73 to 75.
Wow.
So you've seen, big spikes up, big spikes down. I think you're seeing more volatility in July, but on average, the numbers are still lower. So why is that good news? Because when we talk about headline numbers, I was thinking, okay, you got a big decline in June. It's going to rise back up in July. It may not. Now, we still have the second half of July to get through, but so far, again, that sort of gave me hope that we may not get that big spike. Maybe this is more than just 1 month. Maybe this is more to come.
Well, even, and I'll let you finish after this, but even if our 73 average for the first 15 days of July gets back to the June average of 82, which is what took us down, that leaves us a lot of room also.
Exactly, and it could still leave us flat month over month on that headline number. If you're just looking at energy, you're not going to see a big spike. The only sort of maybe wrinkle I'll throw in here about sort of how it makes consumers feel, and I know that you guys hate the surveys, but I'm coming with the survey, and then we'll debate. USAA Federal Savings Bank did a survey not on how people are feeling, but what they're actually doing. More than 1,000 individuals were surveyed. 35% said that they are now redeeming credit card rewards for everyday purchases. So I'm not going on my credit card and redeeming rewards to travel. I'm redeeming that credit card to buy my groceries at the store. So to me, that just shows a little bit of how consumers at home are trying to make some ends meet. I throw that out there. We can debate that, but I don't like seeing that. I'd rather people hold their points and travel, not say I'm redeeming my points because I have to pay off my grocery bill. Just throw that out there for food for thought.
Okay, well, let's stick with that for a moment because the big banks also reported, Lydia, and I mean, it was strong across the board for a lot of different reasons, which, as Taylor was talking about yesterday, kind of gives us the signal that the underlying economy is strong. But having said that, they also made some comments about the consumer and the consumer being stronger. So when you take those comments and juxtapose them with the survey feelings or what consumers say they're doing, how do you think things are really holding up? I always say, as long as consumers have jobs, which we're employed
Yeah, we
well
are.
in this country. They'll continue to spend money on necessities and possibly more if they have it.
Yeah, and I think we're going to get a better picture tomorrow when we get the retail data out that comes in the morning. But I do come equipped with some information from Bank of America.
Great.
They have a report that out about consumer spending, and they expect to hear tomorrow robust June retail sales report, which would bode well and indicate that consumers are still spending. They do call it a truly, quote, messy report, MESSI, in reference to soccer.
I'm glad you spelled
See what
that.
they did there.
Yes, I'm always down for a good pun. So
I
shout out
didn't
to
get it.
Bank of America.
Good clever.
Lionel
Messi
Messi,
plays
he's
for
playing.
Argentina.
Yeah, he's going to play today at 3 p.m. So it's worth
Your words are lost on me.
it's worth watching today. But to get back to the consumer on all of this, they are expecting some robust spending. They're tracking not only all the credit card data that they have access to because they are the bank for so many of us, but they are also saying that this could be, kind of a pull through because of all the World Cup enthusiasm, and also they're crediting Amazon Prime spending. So the question moving forward is, was this kind of like a one-time strong, a lot of spending happening because of just seasonal activities, or is the consumer actually spending because they have the money to spend? They are showing a lot of spending happening on credit cards. They're expecting, they say that that's up 16% year over year. But one thing that they are tracking a lot is athletic and sporting goods. So those are kind of, things that you want to have. You don't necessarily need to have those things. So I would say that seems to be a good thing too. But
Okay.
stuff to look out for tomorrow.
On inflation, Brian, Kevin Warsh saying he wants to get to the 2% target. That's like,
Yay.
wow, because I would say over the last 5-6 years under Biden's inflation, which the president referenced at 9% in June of 2022, we haven't been near a 2% target in quite some time. We even talked about unofficially sort of getting rid of the 2% target and readjusting it to around 3
Right.
and calling that a normalization point. But they're serious about getting these numbers on track,
Yeah.
and they're very close within the range. So if the oil price gets under control in a sustainable long-term way, you will get back to 2%.
I think it looks good. I mean, June, oil prices got under control, and we saw good news on inflation. Kevin Warsh was supposed to be President Trump's puppet, right? He was supposed to be the low interest rates at all costs guy, the political guy. He was going to be taking phone calls from the president all the time and doing what he says. He has been awesome in these hearings with Congress. He has been
I agree.
sedate. He has not been cheering the latest data like we are over it. President Trump in his little Oval
Right.
Office thing said prices are coming way down. We've kicked inflation. Okay, he's the politician there talking about what he would like to see. Kevin Warsh is talking about what's actually happening, and it's good, okay? So I'm with you. If the president can do his job on Iran and Hormuz, okay, and get oil flowing, and Kevin Warsh can do his job, which we are very clear on what his job is, and that is to get inflation down to 2%. We are going to be in a very good spot. These guys are playing in their respective spheres, and that's what you want to see. The Fed should recede, okay? They shouldn't be so important in our economy, and it should come down to real business activity, and I think Warsh is totally on board with that.
Murph.
I was going to just listen to Brian be so positive. I love that.
I'm Mr. Sunshine today, man. Come on. Come on.
I think Kevin Warsh, is a big piece of this puzzle, and it's great to have someone in that seat now that seems pro-business, that seems like they understand the big picture and where the country needs to get to, and it seems like he's all business to get us there. So I think that's great. On the inflation numbers and the polls and the data that comes out, I think a big part of this is people see headlines or read headlines about how good things are, and that snowballs, or about how bad things are, and that also snowballs. It impacts people. And regardless of the numbers that are coming out, I think I've kind of been sticking with this message. People feel good in this country. People are spending money. People are going to continue to spend money. And a lot of that has to do, I think, from the top down. They feel good about being an American, and there's less things to apologize for and less wokeism in the country. So I think the consumer feels good, and the economy is in a very good spot and could be in a great spot. So.
And all things considered then, given what you just said and given the bank earnings yesterday, and we'll get more earnings, stocks have been on fire. Little pullback for some of the tech companies, but that's to be expected when you keep reaching record highs all the time. I'm not too worried about it. The runway is set for an incredibly strong, robust half of the year, but I go back to this Iran conflict and say we do need resolution.
We do, but we're 6 months in. The president said it would be 6 weeks. We're 6 months into what's going to be a resolution at some point in our favor that makes the world a safer place, makes global business easier to do. So the outcome is going to be a huge win for everyone in the world except for Iran. Whether that comes tomorrow or in a few weeks or even in a few months, I still think it's a win for us. So,
okay.
And I think the market is pricing that victory in already. So it's not, tomorrow would be better, but we're going to get there one way or the other.
You know what? Can I just add something, too? Because we talked about President Trump's Oval Office thing there, but he sat down with Trey Yingst last night. And one thing he said that I think was important, and I haven't heard him say yet, is he said to Trey, look, we're gonna do with Iran what we need to do, but everybody in that region is trying to get away from the strait. He said that last night. His point was all these countries are building pipelines. You've got Saudi Arabia, you got Iraq, you got UAE. And so that just bodes in terms of what we're doing with Iran, and I'm looking at oil, WTI at 78, Jackie. 78, and we've hammered Iran how many nights in a row, and we're going to do it again, and the president's talking about bridges and power plants next week, and we're at 78. That, again, it's just more evidence that there's a sea change in the world.
Yes.
You're onto something.
Pun intended.
Because I've been saying
Pun not intended,
I
but
don't
it was
trust
good.
any tentacles of this regime, but maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe the strategy ultimately makes them completely irrelevant.
Yes.
If you're pushing countries away from that strait and that strait is no longer an area of power for them or power source for them anymore, then they end up shooting themselves in the foot. If they want to stay, they can stay.
It's such a good point.
We beat them militarily, when they strike us. And the president, to your point, is talking about a new military strategy next week. The only thing I'm concerned about with that is the potential for a little bit more volatility. Murphy says a victory is being priced into the market. I wonder what the volatility might do in the short term. That's all.
Well, you're the volatility master, Taylor. I feel like the volatility in all this has gone down.
The VIX is at 16.
That's what I'm saying.
That's below the average of 18.
Early in this thing, we do something, it was like, oh my gosh, the world's changing. And now we're doing things and the volatilities are shrinking because they are becoming
irrelevant.
Like they don't matter.
Right, they don't matter.
The whole point is you can crush them or not crush them, but if they don't matter, it doesn't make a difference, right? And they seem to matter. So I like that trend right now.
Yeah.
All right.